Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview. And I feel like we're back in the summer months when we weren't previewing anything. We were just previewing stuff. But that's what we're doing. We're previewing the bye week. Week 7 bye week. Steelers have the week off. We don't have the week off. We're still giving you quality content, obviously. And joining me, as always, is the dynamic duo, which makes the triumphant trio. I like that sound. We'll go with Bryan Anthony Davis first. How's it going, Bryan?
I'm going great, and I've been thinking about the great bye weeks in Pittsburgh Steeler history, and this might rank up with one of them.
We'll talk about that in a second. Dave, how are you?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I'm really happy to be sporting my new lid, but I'm kind of bummed, man. I feel like a third wheel after hearing you guys tear up the show last night, just the two of you. I'm like, should I not be, forcing myself on this show with you guys? Because you guys did a great job.
You're not forcing yourself on the show. This is a three-man show, and Lance was, may he rest in peace, but he was writing notes from the dead, and we handled business. And so here we are on another Steelers preview. So the headline of the show is, did the bye week come at the perfect time? We're going to talk about that in a second. But before we get to that is the new segment we started last week, and that is Around the Horn, where we go to each specific member, or each specific host of the show, and they talk about one thing that kind of struck their fancy, so to speak, from the Steelers in the week that was. Not much happened with the Steelers this week, but there was some news. Dave, we'll start with you. Give you the first shot.
So I'm not allowed to talk about the game last week. This has to just be something else.
Yeah, you can talk about the game because there's no game coming up, and there was no press conference, and they only had a couple practices, and there was no media. I'll give you that.
No, I'll bring up something that's been since the game.
Okay,
it will be that not only the very quick turnaround of events of Coach Tomlin saying, I know I'm going to be asked 100 times, so I'm just going to answer it. If he's healthy, Rudolph's the quarterback, and then hours later, Rudolph being officially cleared from the concussion protocol.
Yeah, and that was great news. We talked about that at length last night. I did mention how it was very, we'll say, creative for the Steelers by announcing it on Wednesday, the last day of media availability, and so then the media could have no contact with Rudolph until after the bye week. It was a smart move on their part. Bryan,
Absolutely.
what about you? What's your around the horn segment?
Well, something struck me this week, and it was about the leadership and poise of a guy that had one catch in that game. But the way he conducted himself with one catch spoke volumes, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because last year, if Antonio Brown, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to call him still Mr. Third and Fifth,
of course,
or Mr.
always.
Big Chest, or whatever we're going to call him, Mr. Unemployed. But at this point, last year, let's talk 2 years ago. He took down a Gatorade cooler in week 5 in Jacksonville. Last year, I went to the Chiefs game, and they were driving to try to tie that game. They scored a touchdown, and he pouted off the field and didn't show up to work the next day. So what I'm saying is the fact that we've talked about Team Kumbaya. We've talked about Team Turmoil last year. Team Turmoil is dead, and one of the leaders of Team Kumbaya is Juju Smith-Schuster. They might have a 2-4 record, but this cohesiveness that this team has is going to flip that script and probably make them a much better team when you have a guy that is thrilled for a win and thrilled for that one catch just because he didn't get the spotlight, but the team got the win. So that's a big deal to me. Kudos, Juju.
Absolutely. Juju Smith-Schuster is quietly becoming a leader on this team, and he's still one of the youngest players on the team. It's amazing how there are so many players. Devlin Hodges. I actually think Deontay Johnson is older than him.
Yes,
chronologically, yet is a rookie, and Juju's entering his 3rd year. I'm going to go for my Around the Horn segment to a little self-promotion for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. So if you don't read the website every week, you would know that on Thursday of every week, I write what's called a Fan Pulse article. And essentially, if you're a part of the Behind the Steel Curtain Fan Pulse, you get an email every Monday, And it is literally, it may take you a minute and a half to complete this survey. It is a general question and then maybe 2 more questions, one of them being, how confident are you in your team moving forward? The options are confident, meh, or not confident. And what they do is they compile all these statistics and they kind of give you a feel for what the fans' confidence level is at that specific juncture in the season. And so you always have a bar graph. And the Steelers bar graph throughout the offseason, and last year at the end of the season was as low as I've seen it in the years that I've been writing these articles. But then with the draft, they trade up to get Devin Bush, it goes up. And then free agency, it went up. And all these things are happening. And then after week 1, it plummets. I mean, it was like jumping off the Clementi Bridge. I mean, just straight down. And slowly but surely, here's what was surprising for me is that the Steelers fan confidence has gone up tremendously since week 6. And I think that, and I want to ask you guys this, do you think it's because they had a big win on the West Coast, which is a place that they always struggle? I know it wasn't San Diego, it was Los Angeles. Do you think it's because they won with a third-string quarterback, or do you think it's because the Steeler fans might have the wherewithal to be looking ahead a little bit, seeing the bye week, seeing the Dolphins on Monday night at Heinz Field afterwards, and thinking, this team might be building some momentum? Brian, what are your thoughts?
I think it's all of the above, and that's a cop-out. But you know what? I'm going to say that just for the fact that, yeah, they are looking ahead, but they are excited about winning with a third-string quarterback, and they're excited about winning on the West Coast because this was a perfect storm of things that weren't supposed to happen. So I'm thinking that they're looking ahead. I'm looking ahead. It's also probably, let's throw in D, the fact that on The Hangover, Tony and I looked at the schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the next 10 weeks. And we looked at the Ravens schedule too as well. And there's actually hope in that schedule. It might be far-fetched, but that promising defense is making us feel better about the entire scenario. And the offensive line is a veteran unit that could come back into its own. James Conner proved last year as a Pro Bowl running back, and we'll see what we have with our quarterbacks. So, the arrow's pointing up as far as excitement goes, fellas.
What about you, Dave? What are your thoughts on that Fan Pulse article?
I'm going to take the same cop out as Brian, and I thought you hit on like all the different reasons. I think it's a combination of those things, but not all necessarily even at the same time. That sometimes you get that bump. It is the bye week. It could be. I mean,
it almost doubled though. The percentage went from 28 to 51.
But they won the game on the West Coast with the only 2 quarterbacks dressing being 2 guys that weren't even on NFL practice squads in week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you just hear those things. And I know Steelers fans, especially we had them here in the live chat last week, that they were confident. They were ready to say, like, Duck's going to lead us to the promised land. They were confident. Anybody else outside of this organization had to think that the Steelers had no chance to win that game. Yeah. I've got to address a couple things. First of all, Jeff, I hate to be that guy, but it's a line graph. Just so you know.
What did I say? Bar
you
graph?
Said it was a bar graph. But okay. That I'm as nerdy as can be. But I've had a lot of people comment on the hat in the live chat. I mentioned at the beginning, it is my fresh new lid. This came from the Steelers shop, from right on Steelers.com. So you can go on there and get it there. So they were running a 1-day sale, and I'm like, ooh, I want to get that one. And got my Renegade Terrible Towel as well.
Very nice.
So, but for those of a lot of people have said that, so I had to say something.
You had me at bar graph, Jeff. I mean, I support you.
Let me just say, speaking of the bar graph, the line chart, whatever it is, as the Instaface, as Bill Belichick puts in social media, I don't get on Instaface. If you want to be a part of the Steelers Fan Pulse, you can, because really the more fans that sign up, the more accurate that data is. And I'm privy to some of those numbers, and there's a significant number of our readers that are a part of that email chain, but all you have to do is go to that article, and it's about Steelers fan confidence. If you right now get on your phone or get on your laptop and go to behindthesteelcurtain.com, you'll see the article at the bottom. There's a link where you can sign up. You enter your email. It's every Monday. It literally takes you less than 2 minutes. I'm not joking. It's literally boom, 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 done. And you're done for the week, and then they'll take all that data, compile it, and then they give it to me in a nice little graphic, and I will put that in the article and tweet it out and stuff. And so there you go. So we lost Brian momentarily. I'm sure he'll be back. But in the meantime, Dave, you wrote an article that was published today about games to watch. It's something we have started to do. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
This is the third one, so yeah, I guess it would have been
okay.
2 weeks
So
ago.
you basically look at the schedule for the Steelers. You look at the upcoming NFL schedule, and you figure out what are the best games for Steeler fans to keep an eye on, and you give reasons why. So with the Steelers being off this week, what are the games that they should be watching and why this Sunday?
Okay, well, what I try to do with this is the best matchups are like someone that the Steelers have already played going against someone the Steelers haven't played yet. But unfortunately, we had a bunch of those matchups before. We didn't have them this week. We only had 3 total matchups of all NFL games that are 2 teams that are on the Steelers schedule. There was only 3 of them. The number one has got to be the Seahawks and the Ravens.
Obviously.
And that's the Ravens traveling to Seattle. Now, do you realize that Seattle hasn't done that well at home this year?
Which is surprising.
I mean, their 2 wins at home were each by 1 point. Now, one was against the Rams, the other was against the Bengals. And then their only loss of the season came at home to the Saints. So, but you know that the Seahawks are going to do well at home eventually. So let's look at this as a good turnaround game for the Seahawks to come out and show that they're going to stomp people when they get them on their field. That's what I'm looking for. The other 2 games were, oh my goodness, I have to remember. I know one of them was the it's well, they're both games that are the crazy Vegas spreads. I mean, they're double-digit spreads in both.
You had the Monday night game.
The Monday night game, which is the Patriots
New
at
England
the
and
Jets. I mean, that could tell you a little
Sam
bit.
Darnold's back.
Yeah, I mean, and the Jets had just turned around and beat the Cowboys. So, but my question is, does that tell us more about the Jets or more about the Cowboys? So,
Right.
because everyone was all hyped on them, but they didn't beat anybody early. The other game is actually, yeah, they are.
Miami at Buffalo.
Miami at Buffalo was the other one. So I think that one's kind of telling because that's the Steelers' next opponent. So Buffalo, and here's the deal. I was going to throw this out with the Stat Geek, but I'll just say it now because it doesn't go with the other stuff I figured out. Record-wise, who's the best team remaining on the Steelers' schedule that they have to face this year?
Record-wise?
Yeah. Who has the best record at this point of the season that they have to face for the rest of the year?
The Colts? Isn't it Indy?
Buffalo Bills.
It is the Buffalo Bills.
Wait a second, have the Colts lost 2 games?
Yeah, the Colts have lost.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So they'd be right there with the Rams, right? Because aren't the Rams?
Yeah, well, then the Rams are 3-3 because they haven't had their bye yet.
That's right. Okay.
So that's the difference there. So yeah, the Rams and the Bills and the Ravens are the only teams that the Steelers have left, I think, that are above or that are at or above 500. Am I missing one? Oh, and the Colts.
Yeah.
In other words, we can talk about that later. But yeah, that's crazy that the Bills record-wise are the best team. And then, like I said on Stat Geek Tuesday night, you never know what you expect. What you think you know of one team in week 3, when you play that team in week 12, doesn't mean that that's anything close to the same narrative with that team.
Well, heck, just look at this past week and see how much teams can change in the drop of a hat. You know, here I am thinking, well, good. The Steelers don't have to face Jalen Ramsey this year. And there we go. Jacksonville sends him to Los Angeles. He'll be coming to Heinz Field in week 10. And then you're even thinking that, okay, the Baltimore secondary is not that good. They trade for Marcus Peters, and Peters will be seeing him in week 17. Now, there's a lot of, in a golf terms, there's a lot of paper left between those 2 games. So in regards to Peters, that's way down the road. But things change quickly in the National Football League, and the Buffalo Bills, who are, you said 4-1?
Yes.
They had their bye week?
They are 4-1.
They could easily be 4-3 in 2 weeks, and then everyone's going to change their narrative. So
playing the Dolphins, though,
the Dolphins are going to win a game.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to win in Buffalo.
I do. I'm not. I'm buying the Buffalo defense. I'm not necessarily buying the Buffalo offense.
Yes.
You know, I was taking a look at every offense and defense on the schedule left for the Steelers in an article that I'm working on to debut this weekend. And Buffalo's offense, they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, their quarterback Josh Allen has 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I mean, the running back, their leading rusher is Frank Gore. With not a lot of action, with I think about 2 touchdowns. The receiving core is they're no names, but they're really winning with defense right now. That would have to continue, and it's going to be pretty tough for that to keep going.
Brian, you have a fan in the live chat, Mike Scott.
That's
Brian
what I
Davis
was
is a machine
laughing
and very handsome, especially that hat. It's that hat. It's the hat.
You know what? Actually, one of my best buddies, who I was chastising for not checking me out because they were like bugging me during the show because they thought I wouldn't answer them because I was on the show. So I chastised these guys. And his brother also complimented me earlier on. So that's the only reason. It's not really because of that. But thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
All right, Dave, you have a stat geek for us this week?
Oh, yeah. I have all kinds of stuff. I won't do it all, though. But here's what I was doing. I'm getting ready. I don't know when the first one will be. For my crunching the numbers, I was going to do more than one article this weekend. I was going to look at, hey, we're at the bye. Let's see where we stand. Things that we've done well, things that the Steelers need to improve on going forward. And what I did was I went back and I looked at the first 6 games of the season in the Mike Tomlin era and where this team stacks up in certain aspects. What do you think the number one thing of the offense, if I could go through any stat and I'd say this is the one stat that is the best stat by far that the Steelers have ever had through the first 6 weeks of the season under Mike Tomlin? Is there anything in the offense that you think that would stand out that they've done better this year than they ever have before?
Offensively,
because that's the tough one. I was like, "Oh, what's some good stuff they've done on offense?"
I'm gonna say not turning the ball over.
They're pretty good at that, but that's not the best under
Okay.
Tom. I had that written down because it was just they were middle of the road
All right.
for that one with their number of turnovers. Oh, that's a good one that Vodka Drinker put up, but I didn't have that number of their touchdowns off turnovers.
I'm going to go out on a limb here,
Yep.
and I'm going to say it's receptions out of the backfield from running backs.
Ooh, that would be a good one if I actually had a stat for that one. That might be true.
He's not the best stat man in the world for nothing.
I don't know, but Mr. Buttigieg Get Robbed would get a lot of those as well. So that's one I might have to check. But I was looking at more solid whole team statistics, and this is it. It's the number of sacks they've surrendered.
Okay. I was gonna say though the key like third downs, red zone. I know it's not the best.
Yeah,
so,
I mean they've some of those they've done well, but this was something they've only. Do you know how many sacks they've given up this year so far?
4.
You're very close.
3.
Wrong direction. It's 5.
Okay.
They've given up 5 sacks in 6 games. Okay, the next closest in the Mike Tomlin era was actually last year when they gave up 9. Then it was the year before at 10 and the year before at 11. So it's been a progression year by year of just looking at the beginning. Back in 2013, they gave up 22 sacks in the first 6 games.
Oh my god.
So when you're thinking about 5, I mean, that's almost half as much as their next best year because their next best year was 9. That's great. So we talk about the struggles with the offensive line. That is merely with the running game. It has not been in protecting the quarterback. So that was one thing that stood out.
Now hold on, Dave. Hold on, Dave. I have a question for you, and I don't know if you have this answer.
I probably don't.
It's okay. On the flip side of that,
okay,
what about sacks in the first 6 games?
sacks that they've got. That was going to be possibly, if not my very next question.
Then go for it, because I'm curious as to where they line up in terms of sacks on the defensive side.
Okay, they have, how many do they have?
12? No, they had one against.
I thought they had 20.
Oh, they have 20. I'm sorry,
they have 20.
20, and they have 15 takeaways.
And what's crazy about having 20, in 3 of their 6 games, they've only had 1.
Yeah, but they had 8 against Cincinnati.
I know, but you also got to look at this. We were talking about this on Stat Geek. For those of you that didn't see it, I had my brother come on so we could geek out and do some number stuff. But look at the quality of teams they were playing in those first 6 games.
Yeah.
And they still got 20 sacks. Now, granted, because they racked up a bunch against Cincinnati, and they would have had a ton against Phillip Rivers this past week, but he's a good, experienced. Only had one because he's a good, experienced, smart quarterback that got rid of the ball, even though one time it cost him a touchdown because he flipped it backwards. But he was just trying to not give up the sacks. But they got so much pressure that it was still effective. But with 20 through 6 games, that has them tied with 2017, 2 years ago. And it's only 2 worse than 2018, which was they were at 22. So when you're talking about those, can they do 50 sacks again and for the 3rd straight year, which they've never done? They're right on pace with what they were in 2017 and just behind what they were in 2018. And the only year that they had better was they had 1 year where they had 25 through 6. Any idea what year they would have had that many sacks early on? Do you have a guess?
In the Tomlin era?
In the Tomlin era.
Let's go 2010.
I was going to say 08.
It's actually 08. Jefferson Hartman got that one correct. I don't know if it's really Jefferson, but Brian uses that all the time.
That's what he always
says. So yeah, someone said 2005. That's pre Tomlin. Yeah. So they're right there. I mean, they're going to be right on the cusp of that 50.
Go ahead, Brian.
I said 49.5, but I think they might get it. Go ahead, Brian.
So if they go ahead and get 56 like they did 2 years ago, what that's going to do is that is going to be a record for a 3-year stretch, and that will be the most sacks in a 3-year stretch in NFL history.
NFL, not Steelers. NFL history.
NFL history.
Wow.
I
did not know that.
I'm going to have to, I'd like to check that one out to see what the exact number is.
AKA is he doesn't believe you. He's going.
No, it's not that I don't believe him. I want to know. No, I want to know what number they have to get to, and who are they breaking?
Who's the real stat geek now, David?
No, I want to know who. I completely believe you. I actually heard you say that. What show did you say that on before? Was that on the Hangover? Because I meant to check it.
I said that before. I don't remember where I got it, but I got it early on in the season.
Yeah, I want to know who holds that record. I want to know who they're beating.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
All I do, I just write articles. That's all.
Here's Jeff. You want to know the other one here? You want to know the other one? The other big defensive stat. Where do they rank with
takeaways?
Takeaways.
They're second in the NFL right now.
They're second in the NFL, and through 6 games in the Mike Tomlin era, they are also second. There's only one other year that they had more takeaways in the first 6 games, where they had 17 takeaways.
Wow, they had a 17 takeaway in 6 games.
How about 07?
I was gonna say it has to be way back.
Oh no! How about when they went to the Super Bowl?
2010.
2010.
Really?
Yeah. So the last time they've had this many sacks in the first 6 games, they went to the Super Bowl. I don't take that, but they have almost twice as many as they did at this point last year. Last year they had 8. And you want to know the truth? They had 2 years in there that through 6 games they only had 2 takeaways. That was in 2013 and 2011. So that's really good. But there's a couple things that are also not as good with the defense that you don't realize.
Hold on, Dave. I don't want to stop you before you get started. This is kind of breaking news. I have Thursday Night Football on the TV right now, and people always talk about why don't they quarterback sneak? Well, Patrick Mahomes just got hurt on a quarterback sneak.
Really?
4th and 1, goes for it. He's on the ground. They're looking at his knee. He's walked off the field, but he's hurt on a quarterback sneak. And so all those times that people say, why doesn't Ben just do the quarterback sneak? Well, I think wasn't it Todd Haley that says I don't want my quarterback getting ear hold.
Ear hold.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes is walking back to he's not going in the blue tent. He's leaving back in the locker room. So I don't want to be like
there went
breaking.
my fantasy team.
I don't want to be like.
I knew I should have started Russell Wilson over Patrick Mahomes this week, but shockingly, I have both of them on my fantasy team.
I feel like we should.
I want to see that on the injury report. Patrick Mahomes did not practice ear hold.
Ear hold. Well, the funny thing is, I feel like we should have had like breaking news music. You know how like on the news is like breaking
and
news.
we all do our own theme music at the same time.
It's the bye week, baby. Let it fly.
So, whoa. Is this true what someone said?
What's that?
Rodney said this. I'm trying to bring it up. They popped the knee back in place on the field.
I didn't see that.
I'll be honest with you. If it was like a dislocation, he might be done for the game.
If it was a
that's
dislocation,
that's not a long-term injury.
If it's a dislocation, he's not walking off the field.
I one time thought that I tore my ACL playing basketball when someone took out my leg. I actually dislocated my kneecap.
Ooh.
And it popped right back in, and I played the next week.
Tough as nails. I
once dislocated my tongue on a Whopper.
Hey, two quick things here.
No, hold on. This just goes to show you in the NFL, one player can alter your entire season.
Exactly.
You know who they have now? Matt Moore.
Oh, the great Matt Moore.
Matt Moore, who almost got decapitated by Bud Dupree.
Yes. I was at that game. Dupree closed so fast. He came out of nowhere. And that happened right in front of us.
Really, really illegal. But
don't sleep on Matt Moore. I'm telling you, that's the backup I always wanted for Pittsburgh.
Matt Moore went to sleep in that game, and they still brought him back in. He's stumbling around on the field.
You all understand this? Like Mahomes is. I mean, if he's gone, they're done.
Oh yeah,
they
done. Just lost 2 straight at home.
Whoa! That's the same thing everyone said about the Steelers when Ben went down.
The Steelers are 2-4.
I know.
You act like they're 4-2.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
What a fickle mistress the NFL is with injuries.
If you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league and you go down, then it doesn't matter who the backup is. People are going to, it's got to be a drop off just because of how good your quarterback is.
Unless your backup's Mason Rudolph.
Well, yeah, we know how it is. We still know that he's the best quarterback out of that draft.
Well, you know what?
He's better than
Baker Mayfield right now.
Faker Mayfield, as Lance calls him. Faker Mayfield.
You guys just talked about breaking news music. Every time Jeff says Mason Rudolph, we're going to have the dreamy harp music.
Well, why don't you just play Dreamweaver?
Dreamweaver. I believe I can make it through the night.
This show has completely derailed. Like, I don't know if we should
keep Come on.
The funny thing is if you're in the live chat, like, honestly, like, if you would rather
focused much more than we are.
If you would rather the show be like this, like, let us know. Like, we can seriously be goofy every week. We try to keep it serious because we think that's what people want. But maybe you all would rather see us just be complete jag-offs all the time. Anyways, Dave, do you have any more Stat Geek stuff, or can we just talk about...
two crazy things. There'll be an article. I'll just throw it out there. Believe it or not, this defense under Tomlin, it's the second worst defense in the number of first downs that they've surrendered. A lot of that's because they've been on the field a lot. They've surrendered 136. The only worst one is last year was 139. And they're the second worst third down conversion rate under Tomlin. The only one of 44.3. In 2012, it was 47.2. Other than that, so those are two stats they do really need to improve on. There was something I was looking at that I thought was crazy. Where was that? That I'm like, oh yeah, and that was you say the Steelers need to run the ball more, and granted they did this last week, which helped. They have the exact same number of rushes through 6 games this season as they did last season.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's 131. Yep.
Huh.
So fun facts.
Here's my question, and this is kind of an either or. And Logan DiLorenzo says it right now, and this is what I was about to bring up. Points per game to me is the most important stat. When you look at the defense, and I know this is the question that got me in trouble with the whole touchdown zone thing in July, but what is more important to you? Is it the rankings of total yards or rankings of points per game?
I wish they had a way that they could combine the two, because sometimes you give up points without giving up yards because your offense has turned the ball over and put you in a bad position. Sometimes you give up yards, but you're not giving up points. I mean, but then there's also situational football. Like the Steelers this past week, their defense ended up not looking like it was that great statistically because they gave up all those yards and points in the fourth quarter, where they were basically saying, if you want to take a bunch of time in order to score, we're just not, you got to make up 21 points in the fourth quarter. What are you going to do? So I don't think any of it accurately describes it, but I don't know which one's better. I would say points.
I didn't even remember the question. I was too busy chirping back at Lance for being
I can't believe Lance called us jagoffs.
Yeah, no one calls us jagoffs but us.
Yes, I was going to say Jeff called us that, but that's okay.
I always think back to, Brian, you might know the year. What was the year that the Steelers were giving up ridiculous yards, but they were like the bend don't break defense? What year was it that James Harrison came back?
I was going to say it was with
14.
Where Kiesel coaxed him back out of retirement.
I believe it was 14.
I want to say it was that season where you're like, between the 20s, teams moved with ease on them. But then
it was
they
the year
down
they lost to the Buccaneers in Pittsburgh. So that would have been 5 years ago.
Oh, that was the Glennon, the Mike Glennon game.
Because I was at that game, and it was his first game back. So they announced Harrison with the starting defense and had him as the last person coming out, and everyone went crazy.
Are they? But that was So that was the Glennon game, the Tampa Bay game. Okay, that pass down the middle. God bless America. Okay,
it was the terrible punt that set it all up.
Oh yeah, who was the punter? It wasn't Barry. It was
the other Australian
guy that's up in
Wing.
Yes, yeah, Brad Wing. He's Australian too.
Wingandale.
They love these guys from down under.
Hey, I'll throw that out there as another stat. 2019 through 6 games, most yards per punt under Mike Tomlin right now.
Right now, this is the best punting performance I've seen in Pittsburgh in a long time through 6 games.
Sin two. Like, I'm not trying to think. Daniel Sepulveda.
Oh, don't sleep on Danny S. No, I would probably
Kapanos. No,
I would say the Josh Miller days.
Wow, that's way back.
Hey, remember, that's Brian's favorite Steeler punter.
Yeah, he finally sent you that picture back.
Yeah. And you know he has a tremendous Pez collection.
Really?
Yeah, I read that in the media guide when I went to a game about 25 years ago. He loves to collect Pez dispensers. And who doesn't love the tasty candy of Pez?
And not only that, he does not have any grudges against paper towel dispensers, especially those in sheets. So
well, that's a kicker thing.
Yeah. So that's what makes it different. Hey, I wasn't going to say these numbers. I just had them written here. But if you want to talk kickers, this is under Tomlin. This is the third time that a kicker has been perfect through 6 games in both field goals and extra points. And it was a different kicker each time because it was Sweezum in 2013 and Reed in 2008. But Sweezum then ended up in the 7th game missing 2 field goals in that game. And then Reed in the 8th game missed an extra point. So we'll see how it goes from here. But I'm digging the kicking game.
I'm still not confident.
But just think if we had this kicking game last season.
Oh no, I get it, but let's be honest. If it's a game-winning kick and it's a 48-yarder at Heinz Field with the wind blowing, are you really confident that he's making that kick?
Anybody other than Justin Tucker, I don't know that I wouldn't be confident in anybody's kicker making that kick.
I feel with the kicking game, I feel like a lover scorned that came home from drinking with the buddies and finds his lady in bed with the mailman. That's kind of how I feel when I watch him kick right now, because I'm still nervous that he's going to let me down again after all the promises that she would make, all the promises that he's making now with his 10 for 10. All I know is I think it's going to go wrong again.
You kind of just wait. You're waiting for the other foot to drop, right?
Exactly. That was the long Harlequin stupid way to say it. But yeah, I'm waiting for the other foot to drop. Shoot a drop. Excuse me.
Okay, whatever.
Touchdown zone.
Yeah. Touchdown zone. Yes, touchdown zone. Oh, down goes Flacco. I'm sorry. I love watching that. Okay. So yeah, I'll always hate Joe Flacco. I don't know why. Well, I know why, but I'll always hate Joe Flacco. I can't stand
because he has the unibrow and looks like Bert from Sesame Street.
Well, that and he has just no emotion at all. Like none. He's like a lifeless body out there slinging the ball deep, praying for a pass interference call. Still doing it, just in Denver.
That's
well,
he did it in Denver and they won a Super Bowl because of it.
Not in Denver.
Yeah, in Denver.
He didn't win a Super Bowl in Denver.
He won a Super Bowl because of Denver?
You mean I know what you're saying. I'm saying,
yeah.
I thought you meant he was playing for Denver. Like, he didn't play for Denver then, obviously. Anyways, so
how do we get Jeff off the screen, Dave?
Well, I'm keeping it in the live chat. They've been saying that obviously Mahomes has already been ruled out for the game. Like, he's not coming back.
Wow.
So
there went my fantasy team this week and my FanDuel team. He was my multiplier.
Hey, don't worry, Dave. You're not alone of people throwing stuff in their house right now watching this game. But okay, let's get to the headline of this episode, and that is: did the Pittsburgh Steelers bye week, which was in week 7, as we all know, as we're talking about, is endlessly today, did it come at the perfect time? And will this be a tremendous bye for the Steelers? And you might be asking, how in the world can you have a good bye other than just getting healthy? Dave, tell them how you can have a good bye based off of 2018, right?
Yes, I don't think they're going to have quite the bye that they had in 2018 because last year, during the bye, the Pittsburgh Steelers entered the bye 3rd place in the AFC North. They did not play a game and exited the week in 1st place in the AFC North. So sometimes by not playing a game, if other things go well, good things can happen. I don't think that will, let's just say, that can't happen this year. Well, first of all, the Steelers are in 2nd place in the AFC North. Yes, they are 2-4, and they are 2nd place because they hold the tiebreaker of the division record over the Browns.
Okay, so they have sole possession of, well, not sole possession, but they're in 2nd place ahead of the Browns. Very good.
So even if the Ravens were to fall to Seattle this weekend, which I am predicting that one,
we're all hoping. Fingers
we're
crossed.
all hoping. That's still not going to change the standings. So, but it's going to make it a little bit closer.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Brian, your thoughts on the bye week this week? Perfect time, or would you prefer to be a little bit later in the season?
You know what? They need it now. They're walking wounded. They're hurting. They're beaten, but not beaten mentally. They're beaten physically. They need to go ahead and have like Huey Lewis would say, all I need is a couple days off. And that's exactly what these guys need. They need a couple days off to go ahead and get things together. There's a nice healing game on Monday Night Football where they are sterling on Monday Night Football, have not lost a home Monday Night Football game since 1991, New York Giants.
I hate those stats, guys. Stop.
Yeah, well, still, they're coming back right at the right time. And this is a good turning point for this team. But they are hurt. And this kind of reminds me, I think they are just one Keanu Reeves speech away from going on a roll. And I'm going to go ahead and do that speech here.
Oh, please don't.
I wish I could say something classy and inspirational, but that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
You definitely should have gone Johnny Moxon right there instead of
no, Keanu Keanu.
No
The
way.
replacement's Keanu. In fact,
I know what you're talking about.
I'm going to get
I
that
know
jersey. I'm going to go ahead and get the Keanu,
Shane Falco.
the Shane Falco jersey. That's my next buy.
Okay, for me, I look at the bye week, and it struck me in a different way today. Teresa Varley, who writes for Steelers.com, she interviewed TJ Watt before he left to do whatever TJ Watt does on the bye week. And he said something that really kind of stuck with me because everyone always says, the same thing. They have to get healthy. They're banged up. Every team's banged up. He said that for him, he goes, I feel like this is almost going to be better as a mental break. And I started to think about that. And my goodness, this team has been through a lot so far this year. I mean, if you think about the stuff that can wear on you, it started in training camp with the loss of Coach Daryl Drake. And then, the offense, you lose Ben Roethlisberger for the season. And although it's just a player and it's not comparable to the loss of a coach, at the same time, when you lose your leader and the guy that you're banking on as being that cornerstone for the offense and possibly the team, and now he's done, and then all of a sudden you go through Mason Rudolph lying lifeless essentially on the Heinz Field turf in week 5, this team has been through a lot this year. They've been through a lot. You lose Stephon Tuitt for the year with the pec injury. I think that this week, and like he said, mentally is going to be really, really good for this team, that they'll be able to step away, kind of get themselves together. Not to mention, someone brought up in the live chat just now, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You talk about guys like Vanette and Fitzpatrick that are still very, very new to this team. It'll give them an extra week to kind of get acclimated and digest everything. And I think this team is going to come back not only healthier, but refreshed. And they're going to be ready for this stretch run because it's going to take a Herculean effort to dig themselves out of this 2-4 hole, but it's not impossible. Dave, you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. I when you look at the schedule before the season started, we thought the bye. I thought it was interesting that sometimes it would have been nice to have the bye coming off of a Monday night game because then you don't have to deal with another short week. Now they have a bye and then a Monday night game, so that's just that extra day over the bye. But the situation of the way everything played out, and what you said was exactly right with about the mental break. But look at what just happened. You just went on the road to the West Coast where you're notoriously not good. You went out there with your whatever string quarterback and you won the game. That picks up. You're rolling into your bye week. Now you're getting these guys healthy. Some people were saying in the live chat that they I wish the bye week was after Miami. I love it right where it is now because this is the reset button for the season. This is when you step back, you hit reset, and it's like a different season now. So wouldn't you much rather start off against a team like Miami? Now, if they come out slow and lay an egg against Miami, then it was the worst thing that ever happened. But I don't believe they're going to do that. I'm going to be there cheering on at that game. So I think that's great. Who it stinks to have a bye this week is the Cleveland Browns because they have a bye this week. And who do they have to play coming off of their bye?
The Patriots, right?
They have to go up north, and they
Yeah.
have to play that team up north. Now, they have an easier schedule after that somewhat. It would have been much better for them to say, hey, get that Patriots game out of the way. All right, we're done with that. Reset our season. Going up against Denver is their next opponent. But no, now they're sitting at 2-4, and they're coming off this saying, what kind of a must-win game because you don't want to fall that far behind like the Steelers. But the Steelers got to play the Dolphins. Browns got to play the Patriots. So I'd much rather be sitting with the schedule the way it is for the Steelers.
You know what? You just brought something up, Dave. And if I'm not mistaken, so the next two games for the Baltimore Ravens are the Seahawks and the Patriots. So the bye week must be in between there. If I'm not mistaken, I think the bye week for the Ravens are in between there. So the next 2 weeks, we have to root for the Patriots pretty much.
Doesn't it stink? But
you know what? One game at a time. And I want to bring this up too. If I can bring this up too, this stat: 69-33 in games after the bye week under Coach Mike Tomlin.
Wow. I think that's too many games.
That is? Okay.
Are you serious?
Okay, that's a buddy of mine too. So I guess
maybe after the bye, maybe meaning in the set, not in the immediate week. I
He's
assume.
only,
yeah,
I mean,
probably after.
Yeah, meaning
okay.
all the games after, Jeff.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm thinking.
There you go.
Like,
Yeah, I'm
he's
thinking.
not been
Wait a
coaching.
second.
What did they dig up Curly Lambeau's bones, and he's still coaching somewhere that he has that many games under his belt? Okay, hold on. We have a
super
super chat. Yes, Damien puts $19.33. That has
Ooh,
significance.
I
to
like
the
the
Pittsburgh Steelers.
significance of that.
If you are reading this or listening to this and don't know what the 1933 means, you need to leave the live chat, go check, get your fan card back, and then come back in. He says, I live in California. I'm a big Steelers fan. I want to fly out there for a weekend and watch a home game at Heinz Field. What would you guys consider good seating at the stadium? Dave, you're our seat guy because you have season tickets. So what would you say?
I'll be honest with you. It's how close do you want to be to the action and what you really want out of it.
Even
Brian,
Peanut Heaven's not bad. Even third deck is not horrible. You have a good view of everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's where my brother's tickets are that he went in with a friend and got this year. Those were we gave away the preseason. Actually, we gave away 2 different games with those seats, and and you can still see well there. The question is, do you like to be on the side or does it not matter? Me as a former coach who's so used to, being behind the huddle when the team would play and run and calling an offense and watching the holes open up that way from the end zone view. I like the end zone view. My seats are in the end zone. I'm seeing the end zone view. I don't even have to change. I can see the play. If it's midfield or beyond, I can see the play and the jumbotron without even moving my eyes. I can see both at the same time. So that's pretty good. I'm not a big fan. I've sat in the corners before. I didn't like the corners as much. I would go one or the other. But Brian, do you think there's really any bad seats in Heinz Field?
I when you get way up in the 500 level and you've got to walk those steps, and I almost needed to be carted down the field, down the stadium. That one time I went all the way towards the top because the elevation gets higher. You feel like you're in Denver at that point. I mean, that's pretty high. But for me, I mean, a buddy of mine had season tickets around $225 for years and still does, and I spent a lot of times in those seats. In fact, I was at the because of 9/11. I ended up going to the first official home game, the first regular season home game, because I had tickets for what was supposed to be the second one, but it became the first because of the tragedy. And I have spent, I would probably say, about 30, 40 games in those seats. So, with that being said, I love the end zone view as well. And that was the closed end of the stadium, what they used to call it. Now they're closing both of the ends pretty much.
Well, the other one's not as closed. It doesn't have an upper deck over where the jumbotron is, but they did put some more seats down in there. So mine, I still technically have one game for sale. I don't know how much I want to sell it. I might want to actually go to that one too. I still got the Bills game with my seats, but obviously the closer you get to the field, the more expensive it's going to be. That's about the best I can say, but I'd sit anywhere. If you are in the upper deck end zone, you are dealing with bench seating and not actual, individual seats. I mean, you have an individual slot, but it's along a bench that has a back. Some people, when it comes to their comfort, they don't know that they can handle that or not.
There you go. I've only been to Heinz Field a handful of times. You guys have been there a lot more than me. So in regards to that, there really doesn't seem. I've sat in the upper deck. I've sat down the lower bowl. The upper deck wasn't bad. If you can be at the bottom of that upper area, you have a really good view of watching everything develop and all that. So it's pretty good. A lot of questions. So you said someone asked about Color Rush. They are wearing those on Monday Night Football.
I know that the Color Rush.
Yes.
The Color Rush.
Why wouldn't they wear those on Thursday when they go to?
Because it's an away game.
Because they're on the road. So the plan is
sometimes both teams would do it no matter what.
I know the Miami game and the Rams game. One is the throwback and one is the color rush because I'm going to both of those games, but I don't remember which one's which.
Rams are the throwback.
Okay.
Okay.
Brian is the jersey aficionado, so definitely listen to what he has to say.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with you guys. And someone asked where you get your jerseys from, Brian. I'm not sure if you can legally state that, or if you just want to
Private message me and tell me what you want. How about that?
Hey, I know a guy who knows a guy, and he gets these
Yeah.
things. They fell off a truck. I tell you, they fell off a truck.
Old Bat will take care of you. Just tell me what you want.
The shipment fell off the truck. I'd say all these Ben Roethlisberger jerseys. Anyways,
I'm half Italian. All I have to say.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. Let's do a little over under. It's really only one question that comes to mind. Okay, so most people don't realize that the NFL trade deadline is coming up. Over under on Steelers trades prior to the deadline. We'll say 1.5. What do you think? Brian, we'll go with you first.
I'm going to say under. I think there's going to be a trade, but it's going to be Artie Burns.
Really?
And yeah, I think Artie Burns will go for a seventh round pick.
Someone wants Artie Burns?
Hey, you guys were talking. Everybody was talking about how awesome and tremendous he was against the Los Angeles Chargers. So
he was serviceable, is what I would
hear that
say.
from me.
He didn't play bad.
Didn't play good either.
But anyways, I took some heat for putting him in detention for the grade because I had to put somebody in. But everybody was
come on. When
aid.
You heard Artie Burns was starting, you expected a lot worse than what you got.
Oh yeah, okay, that's true. But no, I actually think that's a trade that could happen for a team that needs a defensive back cheap.
Okay, what about you there, Dave?
I'm going under. I'm going to say 0.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, they've made a couple trades already. It would. I can't believe they've already made 2. Since
okay.
I mean, in season.
What position do you think they could possibly target if they do make a trade? Either one of you can answer this one.
You know what? I mean, at this point, the only thing is a kick returner, and I don't even think they would do that.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Dave? You disagree? Agree? Another position?
I mean, if the right defensive lineman did come along just to help with the whole Stephon Tuitt thing, although I don't know that they need it, but they could do it. Other than that, I really don't know what they would do. I think because I don't know that they'd want to do anything at running back. If you look at wide receiver, I think the biggest thing they need there is experience. I just don't see where they would do it. I mean, I think Brian's saying kick returner is something they could do, but they had a good kick returner and chose not to keep him on the 53 to start the season.
And he has a 60-yarder this year, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Does he have any tonight? He's playing right now.
The love fest continues.
I'm not watching.
I didn't think he was going to make it because I didn't think he was good as a receiver.
Spencer.
Spencer, the love fest.
Hey,
your
Stephon
show would have
Alan
Russell. Spencer loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I that's why I'm wearing orange.
Okay, next question. True or false? True or false? The Pittsburgh Steelers will waive Dante Moncrief prior to Week 10 to get their third-round compensatory draft pick. Brian, true or false?
Right now, I'm thinking false, and because they're going to need some bodies there, and if they still have guys hurt, you have to have somebody. Ryan Switzer's not the guy. Johnny Holton's not the guy. So I really don't think they're going to cut him.
Dave?
I think they are, unless he comes out and has like a 2-touchdown game or something like that, or a 7-reception game here in the next couple weeks, because you're saying Ryan Switzer's not the answer, and you're saying Johnny Holton's not the answer. Do you want to know what else? Dante Moncrief's not the answer. He hasn't been this year. So if you're going to have somebody who's not the answer, why not have someone who isn't your most expensive receiver on the team, because he's the highest paid guy they have, and at this point, he's not playing as good as he's not playing as good as a Deontay Johnson, who is a 3rd-round pick, if you know what I mean. So I don't want him to keep him and then just never use them. So I would rather, I don't want to cut him just for the pick, but at this point, it's like, why not?
To me, it comes down to the health of James Washington.
Exactly.
If James Washington is healthy, Deontay Johnson has stepped up, I think, in a big way. Juju's Juju. You have those 3. Johnny Holden could be your 4th. You wouldn't need him. But if this shoulder injury from Washington creeps around and he sits out week 8 and you're not sure if he's going to be fully healthy, then it becomes an issue. So for me, that's what it all depends on. I'm going to say true that they do cut him because that 3rd-round pick could be very valuable next year in a draft where they don't have a lot of early draft picks. So that's what I think. So, all right, guys, anything to add to the show before we call it up? Call it a show?
I do.
Go ahead, Brian.
It's Pittsburgh oriented.
Sure.
It's not Steeler oriented, but this is something near and dear to your heart. Even though you were not born, Jeff.
I know what you're going to say.
Is it about Pittsburgh Dad?
No.
Brian, I don't even know who that is.
Is it from the year 1979?
Yes, Smashing Pumpkins.
I know what you're going to say.
October 17th, 40-year anniversary.
Game
Pop Stargell, 4-1 victory in Game 7.
We are family.
We are family. And I've got BTSC in me. So, the Pittsburgh Pirates beat the in Baltimore, came back from a 3-1 deficit, won that series 4-3. It was a magical night, and I don't know why I'm wearing orange for that. But all I know is that that was just fantastic. And 40 years, where has it gone? I want to see. I've got to see my Penguins do it 5 times. As an adult, I got to see the Steelers do it twice. I want so badly to see the Pirates get back there to the promised land. Don't know if it's ever going to happen in the nutting era, but that's 40 years ago. Where have you gone, baby?
Well, in order for the Pirates to get back to the promised land, you have to have someone in charge that wants to get them there.
You do not want me to get started on this conversation. You do really, really don't want to get me talking about the Pirates.
Oh, I do.
No, I don't think our listeners. My wife is saying no. Please don't. So, okay, we have a $5 tip jar from Snowman. He says, "What do you expect from Mason Rudolph the rest of the season?" This will be the last question we answer. Dave, go for it.
Continued improvement.
I like it. Brian?
Happy feet the first week, and then continued improvement after that.
I'm going to say 2 words, dropping dimes. He's going to start throwing
dimes.
I want to see Jeff in the jersey. I want to see Jeff. I want to see poor Jeff with his jersey.
Poor Jeff. No, I think that he's going to start throwing the ball down the field. I think that they're going to have a level of trust in him to deliver the ball deep and accurately and make the right read. He's had enough experience, so I think he's going to be better. And plus, he's going to have some motivation, too. I think there might have been a little bit of Mason Rudolph that said, this is my job. It's my job, and now all of a sudden Devlin Hodges comes in and wins his first start, and he might be saying, wait a second, I've got competition now? Like, they traded Dobbs to Jacksonville. Like, I have competition now? So, there you go. All right, so I do want to let everyone know that we are still going to have content coming up. Everything from this weekend's going to be strange because there's no game. So, like, Brian's Boldham's our predictions. I guess he could still do it. I'm wondering. I always am curious where Le'Veon Bell is going to be rapping every week.
I was going to stop doing that, actually. And then you brought it up, how you look forward to it. So I'm like, yeah, I got to bring that back. But I've got
the time that he got on the Gateway Clipper and did a show on the Gateway Clipper for fans on the way to the game or something was maybe my best. That's my favorite. So a lot of people were asking about Mason Rudolph. Why do I like Mason Rudolph? I think Mason Rudolph, since they drafted him, is an NFL caliber quarterback, period. It was the first time that I felt the Steelers drafted a quarterback that could be viewed as the future. Every other draft pick they ever made, whether it's Dobbs, whether it's Brian St. Pierre, whether it's Dennis Dixon, it was all just a backup. This was the first time that I was like, this guy might actually be viewed as the next guy. And so I kind of got behind him, and I wanted to see him do well. And I want to see the Steelers not have a lull between quarterbacks like we saw between Bradshaw and Ben. Like, that's what I'm hoping for. Like, me rooting for Mason Rudolph doesn't mean that I don't like Ben Roethlisberger. Me rooting for Mason Rudolph is, if he's good, that means the Steelers are going to be good, which means that business is going to be good. It's all relative here, folks. And yes, I am from West Virginia. So with that being said, make sure you guys pick up on that joke. I mean, my gosh, it's not that late, is it? Jeez, it's all relative.
Huh?
Never mind.
Okay,
I totally missed that. You totally missed that, Jay. Anyways.
I did not realize that's what you were saying. I was like, what is he talking about? Okay.
My sister-in-law has a shirt that says it's all relative in West Virginia. And I said, you can't wear that shirt. You can't wear that shirt because you're not from West Virginia. So
I lived there for 9 years. I got married and divorced in West Virginia, and it wasn't related.
Not from West Virginia. Still not from West Virginia.
If you get divorced in West Virginia, you're actually from West Virginia.
Is that a state law? Is that legislature?
I think as long as it's not family. And like I said, I live there.
I was going to say, but the question is she still your sister?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right?
Check, please. I'll have the check.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Lance will be on tomorrow night, I'm sure, spouting negatively about the Steelers, and I said it. And then Saturday, I'll be on for the Steelers burning question. Sunday, we'll figure something out, maybe after the Ravens and Seahawks game, talk about that a little bit. And next week, we'll be right back to the usual. Brian will be on with Tony for the Steelers hangover on Monday, and it'll just flow from there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guess thank you for your time, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Steelers Preview.